Hey, what's up, WCReplays.com? This is Orange doing yet another audio commentary. And yes, it is an Orc audio commentary. And yes, it is copywritten. And yes, it is on Axlav himself. So, get the replay paused at the 45-second mark while I go over some splendid map details. Now, the one thing about Turtle Rock is that I kind of find it's an Orc map. A lot of people might disagree with me here and there, but the one thing that they do have is the ability to creep half these camps so freaking easily, just because of how many medium armored creeps there are. I mean, even at the red camps, they have like a couple troll berserkers, and those things just go down so fast to wolves and grunts and what have you. Also, the one thing that you can do, and I might provide an example of this, is if you do kind of a tavern build, but you go a natural hero with Orc, you can actually fast expo on Turtle Rock. And what you do is you just head over to one of the red camps with the trolls, and then you can actually, beat down the creeps that way. The only drawback is it only works on, a couple matchups, so something like Orc versus Orc or Orc versus Undead is pretty much perfect for a fast expo. Reason being, versus Undead, well, Expo pretty much wins you the game anyways. And versus Orc, Tier 2 doesn't really matter as much until you actually get a bunch of Tier 2 units. And by the time you get to Tier 2, you'll be able to outmass him and head into low upkeep before him anyways. So, usually pops out in your favor, especially because you'll be able to creep heavier camps early on. And you'll have a bit of a hero advantage to fend off their little Tier 2 push that they might do with their secondary hero, be it Fire Lord or Shadow Hunter or whatever. So, now that I've been talking for a while, let's get this on pause under Axlav's point of view. 1x speed, 45-second mark. Unpause in 3, 2, 1, unpause. Alright, so pretty much basic build order and build placement, especially on this map. Generally, versus Night Elf, the one thing that you kind of want to do is keep your burrows further in the back than, say, against Human or Orc. Reason you'd keep them further up front against Human or Orc is because Human or Orc actually have, the potential to tower push you. Against Undead, it's not so much a problem, especially because, when they get Destroyers, I don't know, I tried to say both at the same time. Really, all you want to do is make sure that you have kind of your burrows separated a wee bit so that they don't take splash damage if they do come in with chain morphed, Destros. So, like, say where he's putting his second burrow, he could have put it further away, somewhere more protected. One thing that Axlav is doing is he's going Shadow Hunter. It's actually a great starting hero for this map. A lot of people might disagree with me. Shadow Hunter's just such a good hero in general. One thing that it's great for is it has low-cost spells. I mean, the one thing that, Torn Chieftain, you can either go with a 90 costing mana spell or a 100 costing mana spell. And with Farseer, you're going to have to cast two things anyways, the Wolves and the Chain Lightning, which costs 120. And that's pretty much brutal. With the Shadow Hunter, all you really have to do is spend about 60. Really nice to spell there, actually. Or detonate by Mr. Sky Blue. At least I'm going to call him that. So yeah, Hex pretty much only costs like 60 or 65, something low. I don't recall the exact number. That's kind of embarrassing. Wards only cost 30. Healing only costs 90. So, all in all, you really don't lose much with the mana burn. All you really lose is kind of the ability to creep without having to use salves. But early on, all you really have to do is avoid taking too much damage on your grunts so that they don't get picked off. Great use of Hex, really. It's just to fend off the Demon Hunter a little bit. One thing you do is you always try and avoid the second mana burn with the Shadow Hunter. Of course, you try to avoid, all of them, but it's always best to avoid more than one, just so you can actually get 2 or 3 hexes off by the time he does anything spectacular. So Axlav's going to do something really smart. He sees the Demon Hunter trying to finish off one of his creep camps, so you just kind of focus down the Demon Hunter, hex him, and then, run up, finish off the creep, and then pick up the item. That's brilliant play because he won't be able to do any damage to you, and he really won't be able to pick up the item or use any items of his own. So really he's kind of a sitting duck when you do that. So he's already started his Tech 2 Tier 2. Generally you want to start that as soon as possible. Generally people like to do a 2 grunt tech, something along those lines. Always a good idea to try and get a nice little tech off. You'll also notice that the Demon Hunter is so much more weak than the Shadow Hunter. In fact, if the Demon Hunter came, like, right now against the Shadow Hunter in the middle of the map, the Shadow Hunter would win. So, even, you just dodging the one, or the second mana burn, you gain so much more damage output against him that it's just ridiculous. Also, you'll notice he hasn't picked a second skill set yet. It's always good to check what they're going at Tier 2 before you pick your second skill. Generally, you want to go Hex first, but if they do go Bears, you'll want to get Healing Ward, or Healing Wave. Healing Ward, where the hell did that come from? But yeah, you want to get Healing Wave just because of how much damage is being done to all your raiders, and you just want to preserve those as much as possible. But he does go Ward in the end, which is probably the smart thing to do. It just allows for such a strong Tier 2 push if you want to do one. Wards are pretty much amazingly underrated. Once you hit level 2 wards, they do so much more damage, and they have like 135 HP. They do, I think, as much damage per second as, I don't know, maybe a guard tower. Not too strong a tower, just a tower. One thing to note, he is beefing up a little bit much on his Shadow Hunter. One thing you really want to do is you don't want to take much damage on him. I guess you could have used Hide, but, such is life. So, yeah, when picking your second skill, it's always good to know what your opponent's doing first. Like, if they're doing something like Mass Talons, it's always good to go Wards, and then go Wards third when you hit level 3, just so you have the level 2 Wards. It's a lot more important than the level 2 Hex in this case, or in that case. If they're going Bears, you'll want to go level 2 Hex, of course, just so that you can pick someone off at Tier 2, and then they won't be able to cast Rejuve as much. One thing to point out is that if you do go Healing Wave, the one thing you really have to worry about is being mana burned. You really have to pawn off the mana burn on any other heroes, or you're going to have to carry a whole bunch of mana pots with you. So it's always one thing to keep in mind. So notice Axelav has a really nice base build. His burrows are fairly protected, and the Demon Hunter would actually have to go all the way around and then pass his gold peons just to be able to get to the burrows. So really any kind of Tier 2 push would prove useless because you can only fit 1 or 2 heroes in there, and then you'll get pretty caught up, and it will hurt in the end. He does go Tauren Chieftain second, and of course, as it is Axelav, he usually goes War Stomp. Generally, it's good to go War Stomp against things like Bears. Shockwave doesn't do as much damage, especially with all the rejuve, so it's nice to have the stun. I'm not really sure on I don't have like massive amounts of knowledge on the use of War Stomp, but I do know that if you do get level 2 Hex, the one thing that you can do with Stomp is you can actually kill a hero without them being able to use an item. So, you Hex, and if you time it right and you Stomp right after the Hex is finished, and then you Hex them again right when the Stomp stun is done, and you do that a couple times, you'll be able to kill pretty much any hero unless it's like Rejuved or something. It's pretty much one of the more powerful hero nukes in the world. A lot of people don't use it because it's so situational and it's so hard to do. Especially because you need to hit level 3 just to be able to use it. Unlike, Undead, where they can just nuke the crap out of you no matter what. Or like Human, and you just banish and bolt and it's over. Generally, you have to be fairly situational, especially with Orc, because, the way that an Orc army is set up is you have so few units, and they're so awkward because of how much, space they take up, that you really have to be more worried about your positioning and make sure that your Shadow Hunter doesn't get picked off. So that's always one thing to consider. Also, Shadow Hunter has really nice range on Hex, so it's not as big of a problem. The only problem would end up being like your Tauren Chieftain getting in the fray of things and running out of mana would prove to be absolutely terrible if you had either one of those heroes up front. So once again, good use of Ward. The one thing that he